Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Henchman's Memoirs. This is our weekly Dark Souls of Drakkenheim campaign recap. When we left off, the party was in Camp Dawn, and they were trying to get their gnome druid fixed up from all of his corruption. He got the corruption removed, but then he had that many levels of exhaustion. He had 3 levels of exhaustion. So I think they got one decent night's rest there at Camp Dawn. But they decided they wanted to head back to the Smithy on the Scar. They wanted to check in with them and see if they could provide any help to the leader of that faction, which had gotten some levels of corruption the last time they were there. So they decided to stop by Emberwood Village and check in with their old friend River, who's a lieutenant there of the Amethyst Academy faction, and kind of touch base with her. They had collected some Eldritch Lilies when they were fighting Queen Lenore, and so they wanted to give those to her and just kind of check in with her and maybe see if they wanted to buy anything from old Aldor the Immense. So they swing around and they get to Emberwood Village, and I was so glad they did. I've been waiting to spring this on them. As soon as they got into town, Tobias Crow intercepts them and tells them that the followers of the Fallen Fire had come in to Emberwood Village, and they had given a bunch of speeches, and they had kind of had a tent revival thing going on, and a whole bunch of people from the village had left and had followed the followers of the Fallen Fire and were headed up to their headquarters there, including going all the way back to the very first episode of the Dark Souls of Drakkenheim, Emma Crow, the young woman they encountered who showed them around town for a gold piece, and they kind of made friends with. Tobias's daughter has gone off with the Fallen. She's fallen under their spell, and she's gone off with them, and she's headed into the haze to their headquarters. I think it's Champion Gate that they control. He begs the players, he beseeches the party to rescue his daughter and bring her back. Of course, he would do it himself, but he took an arrow to the knee a few years ago, and so the party immediately sets out on the trail of these followers of the Fallen Fire, and a couple good survival rolls later, they come upon this group. I had some stats. I need to post a link in the comments. This guy on Reddit who's produced all these excellent stats for expanding in Drakkenheim. I'm sure if you're familiar with Drakkenheim, you know this guy. And he has these different documents for each faction. And so I had a hold of his doc that had followers of the Fallen Fire at different ability levels and stuff. So the party catches up with them, and they've got all these villagers, including young Emma, that they're basically using as human shields. And the party's like, I think you guys have gone far enough. And who would they see there except their old friend Joel of Osteen from St. Brenna's Chapel, right? So this guy got away from him last time. And he was kind of one of the villains that I've been talking about that was going to be part of the Sinister Six that I was just waiting to reintroduce this guy. And basically he's like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. These people have come with us of their own free will. What do you think you're doing? And I'm pretty sure it was old Atticus that basically was like, look, I don't like you. I don't like your face. I'm taking you down. And basically escalated things from harsh words to harsh blows. And it was a pretty tough fight. The party... the monk was using his mobility to move all over the battlefield. And I had stats for a bunch of kind of, heavies or toughs that only had like one spell each that were followers of Joel, and then Joel had all these spells that he could utilize, and he kept kind of casting a spell and then moving back in between all of these villagers from Emberwood Village, and then he would I think Thaddeus might have been using dissonant whispers on something that would force him to move 30 feet away, but then he would just move 30 feet back, so he was in the middle of all those villagers again. But he had some pretty tough spells. The party definitely solidified their burning hatred of him, and it was fun for me because besides running the fight, I was kind of very conscious of what do all of these villagers think about what is going on, and I wanted the party to sort of try to make them see that Joel was just using them as human shields and whatever else. And I think it was old Pietor who kind of caught on to what he needed to do, and he was trying to give these stirring speeches every round as a free action, and be like, look, people, he doesn't care about you. And I think he had 3 rounds. The first round, he had good reasoning and he got a good roll, and the people were kind of on the fence about what they should do. And then the second round, what he was saying didn't make as much sense to me, and he had a pretty rotten roll also. And so then the commoners were still sort of not sure what to do. But now, like, most of the acolytes were down, and Joel had taken some damage. And finally, in the last round, Pietor came up with sort of a good argument, to convince them that they had been bamboozled and these people weren't who they said they were. And just as the villagers were kind of coming around to their way of thinking, they managed to take down, for once and for all, Joel of Osteen and put him out of the picture. And then they returned with the rest of these villagers back to Emberwood Village. Oh, and just as a bookkeeping thing, Flamekeeper Hannah actually tends this actual temple in Emberwood Village, and she had gone out after the people who had been taken, and nobody in the village was sure if she was actually joining the followers of the Fallen Fire or if she was trying to bring the villagers back. But the party met up with her, found her, and brought her back safely too, and she was in fact trying to undermine or prove that Joel and his team were a bunch of frauds. So it was a tough combat, but it was a very satisfying one. So then the party did go ahead and talk to River, who in my campaign is a human, not a tiefling, because my campaign is more of a gothic horror setting, and humans are much more prevalent. Humans, elves, and dwarves, maybe a few halflings. The rest of these races are very, very, very rare, so it wouldn't make any sense for River to be a tiefling. So she's basically a human in my campaign, but the party went and talked to her. She said, they were doing well. She was happy to get the Eldritch Lilies, happy to get their information about what's going on in the city. And of course, the quest that she wants to give the party is to take out the 2 malfeasant wizards that are operating inside there and get their research, right? The Silver Order is more about hunting down malfeasant wizards. The Amethyst Academy is more interested in their research and getting a hold of it. So they're like, yeah, you need to bring those guys to justice, and if you could bring us their research too, that would be great. But they didn't know any other sort of way to scry through the haze. So the party was kind of asking her about that based on their quest that they got from the Hooded Lanterns. So then they went to Old Aldor the Immense. My party has a hate-hate relationship with this guy, which is fantastic. It's totally based on the prices that are listed in the book. The party just resents so much that he wants to gouge them for every healing potion and every thing that he gives them. I did let him have some items that I've introduced to my campaign from some other supplements, including this holy tonic that's like a more powerful healing potion. But if you are dropped to 0 hit points, if you use it and then you're dropped to 0 hit points before you complete a long rest, you're going to wake up with levels of stress or a temporary madness or something like that. So it's kind of a more powerful magic item, but with a downside. But they asked him to, they're like, Aldor, do you know anything about piercing the haze and getting information? He said he didn't know anything about anybody who could pierce the haze, but what he does know about is that there are these shadow folk, these darklings, that actually live in the city and are not necessarily evil or corrupted by the power of the haze and all this stuff. And they actually have eyes everywhere. They have little tunnels that they can travel around in. And he has heard that they have a very extensive sort of information gathering network. He's like, besides the ratlings, right, the rat folk, who also have kind of a similar situation going on. There are parts of the city that they know everything about. The dark folk, the dark creepers, the dark stalkers, the darklings, in other parts of the city, the orphanarium and so forth, they have eyes everywhere. And he's heard, that if you can make contact with them, they can be dealt with. He says, unless, you can do the same thing with the rat folk unless you have some reason to think you might not be on good terms with them. And then he gives a hearty laugh because he word has gotten around that they cleared out the rat folk from the rat's nest, right? Way back at level 2. But he did tell them about the dark stalkers, and the party was very interested in that. They wanted to see if maybe these guys had some special information. And from there, the party is going to head on up to the smithy on the Scar. Join us next week to find out how that's going. There's still more stuff that happened in our big weekend-long extravaganza. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and join us next week. Thanks.